Ahmed back again with another interview today for WDSportz, and today we have Luke. You may know Luke, but I'm going to let him introduce himself anyways. Luke.
I'm Luke. I run a YouTube channel called NLYT, which just looks at all different sort of things about non-league football, basically, and all different types of news and things like that, just covering non-league, essentially, yeah.
It's interesting, Luke, that you do a channel about non-league, because obviously we do stuff like that as well. But when people start football YouTube channels, they try and do like Football Daily and, Copper 90, stuff like that. What made you want to just focus on non-league?
Well, it all came about, I think it was about 4 years ago now that the channel started, and it was all built out of me watching non-league every week. It was, I've been a season ticket holder at Kidderminster Harriers since I was 9 years old, back in about 2009. So at that point, I was more interested in non-league than looking at other levels particularly, and there wasn't really any sort of content on YouTube looking particularly at non-league in the same way that my channel sort of does. So I thought if I'm looking for this kind of content and no one else is making it, then maybe other people are looking for that sort of content as well. So I thought I'll just fill that void effectively.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about that, because when we talk about football and stuff like that, what was your first type of football memory that made you want to say, yes, I want to do something in the football industry? Can you remember? Or
I'm not sure really. Football's always been sort of a big part of my life. I've watched it, as I say, ever since I was 9 years old. Every week, it's always been a big part of my life. So it's like, as sort of social media and media has progressed, and YouTube has progressed in terms of football, media wise, I thought, this is something that I want to watch some videos about non-league football, and there isn't really anything on it. So I thought I'd just sort of create something effectively.
It's interesting you talk about creating something like that, and how has your YouTube football journey, I want to say, been? Because you're on, I think, 15,000 subscribers, which is quite a lot for someone who just specializes in an area of football, forgive me, that doesn't really receive a lot of attention or get that much attention.
Yeah, I never thought that my channel would ever get to that sort of level. The growth that it experienced in particularly the first 3 years was ridiculous. The last year, it sort of leveled out. I think that's probably about the maximum of people that are going to want to watch non-league. But to be around sort of 15, 17,000 subscribers, something like that, I think it is far beyond what I ever sort of imagined it would ever be. But it's just great to see a lot of people getting involved in non-league and getting really interested in it, and that sort of correlates with increased attendances over the last few years in non-league as well. It's all sort of on the up, I think.
You talk about the experience you've gone with non-league and how it's growing, and of course we want to talk about the recent decision that we've seen with coronavirus and the horrible epidemic the world is seeing. What have you think your level of football has responded? Do you think it's responded well, or do you think it's a hard one to discuss because we have never seen anything like that before?
I think the way that the Vanarama National League have responded to it, I think, is quite good. They were criticised early on when a lot of the other leagues, the Premier League and Football League, as well as a lot of the leagues below the National Leagues, were postponed. I think it was the weekend of the 14th of March. But the National League controversially decided to carry on, and got a lot of criticism for that. But I think following that, they've really handled the situation quite well. They've sort of waited to see what the Football League and Premier League are going to do their end, but now there's not really a huge amount of news coming out of there. I think it's important that the National League have acted now to just end the season, and it's right. They've also looked at what the clubs really wanted. They've taken some votes from different clubs across their three leagues, and I think over 90% voted to end the season now without actually confirming what way they're going to end the season, in terms of whether it's just going to be null and void or points per game or anything like that. So I think the National League actually have really done well with that.
Can you talk about how the National League have done well? What is your opinion on, because obviously there was that petition going around to stop the FA from what they were doing, and the fans were unhappy, and some players have spoke out, and even some managers have spoke out. How have you think the FA have dealt with it? And do you think there is that rumour that they only care about the creme de la creme leagues, such as the Premier League, which make a lot of money for them, or do you think it's simply not the case and it's been a lot of fake news around it?
I think, in my opinion, 100% agree with what you're saying. I think the further down the leagues that you go, the more that the FA make it more difficult for the clubs. Obviously, they made the very big decision to null and void the entirety of Tier 7 and below, which I think was done too quickly and also too sort of inconsiderately of how well some of the clubs have done. For example, 2 teams actually confirming their league title, and the FA effectively just taken that away from them. Yet there's some other teams in other leagues that have had different things applied to them potentially. So I think it's been unfair from the FA. And yeah, it's just a shame to see that the further down the leagues that you go, the more it becomes more of a challenge in terms of fighting against the FA ultimately.
Mm. You talk about fighting against the FA, and obviously you work around non-league. How would you say the rapport is with the FA and other governing bodies at your level? Would you say it's good? Would you say it's bad? Or would you say now, in the light of this whole corona epidemic, there is room for improvement?
Well, I can't really speak for the clubs themselves, but I'd imagine that a lot of the clubs feel very hard done by right now by what the FA have done, particularly in Tier 7 and below, because they've just put this in place. And regardless of sort of what's happened previously, moving forward, it's going to be difficult for these clubs to be sort of pleased with the FA when this has happened. Obviously, it's a completely unprecedented situation with coronavirus, and how the FA have dealt with it is just how they've dealt with it. But yeah, it's a very, very tricky one.
You talk about the tricky one. Back to you, have you ever made, because you do about non-league, and it must go around like wildfire sometimes. Have you ever made a video where you've not been sure about it, but you've published it, or a video where you've got some stick? And if you have got some stick off it, how have you reacted to it?
Yeah, I mean, I've had plenty of videos that people have disagreed with, and that's fine. It's the point of the videos is to sort of open up debates and bring awareness to different situations, even if they're negative situations that potentially could cause trouble even for myself potentially. By covering these situations, I try and do it in a completely neutral way where it sort of looks at both sides of a story. And yeah, there's been some tricky situations that I've had to sort of negotiate around, but still, I think it's important to bring coverage to different tricky situations, positive and negative, around non-league, because it just raises that awareness. And if I've got a little bit of a platform that can raise that awareness, then I think that's important to try and do that.
You talk about your platform, and we had Harvey the other day, we had Karthik, we've had Mark Harrison as well, people involved at your level. Would you say the work you're doing is not essential, but it helps promote the league, and more people should really invest in their local teams?
I think people definitely should look into supporting their local teams. Definitely, I think it's going to be a tricky time ahead now for a lot of clubs at a lot of levels, particularly those in non-league, at all levels of non-league. Really, it's going to be a tricky time now for the next few months. The uncertainty of not knowing when football's going to start. But yeah, I think having this platform is an important thing. Maybe to just provide some awareness and keep people up to date as much as I can, really, and yeah, just try and do my bit effectively. That's what I do. But ultimately, I do it because I enjoy what I do. I enjoy making the videos, and if people find it useful, then that's an extra bonus as well.
Exactly. What would you say is the future? Because we're living in this time now where everything's up in the air. What do you think is the future? You can answer this anyway, like of your football or football in general, and what is the future for your channel and you going forward? Where would you like to be, and where would you like to see non-league going?
I think moving forwards, football's going to be tricky for the next few months. It's going to be difficult for the clubs to survive. There's already been a few clubs that have had to either resign from leagues, or there've been a couple of rare situations so far where clubs have had to liquidate because of the current circumstances. But that's just part of the game. I think that's where the FA could come in and really help out and try and improve things and try and help put some investment in. I've seen that there's been some funding taken out of the Premier League. I think 125 million that's going to be allocated to lower leagues. But the further down that you go, the lowest level of that is the National League North and South, and they're getting just over £10,000, whereas that doesn't seem to be a huge amount of money compared to the 125 million that's available in that pot. So it's a tricky situation where where do clubs go from this, and it's just very, very tricky.
That's a good point. And finally, from our point of view, where would you like to see your own channel grow? Would you like to see one day maybe, I don't know, Sky or BT give you your own platform where you can have a non-league TV type TV format that we've seen in the past? Or would you just like to see a YouTube channel grow and perhaps get people just more and more interested in non-league?
Yeah, well, I mean, the dream of anyone in this sort of situation would be to make it, even further. And as you say about Sky or BT, for example, that would be the absolute dream. But realistically, that's probably not going to happen. So the aim for me is just to try and continue this channel and try and grow it as much as I can. And yeah, just try and get it as far as possible. Really, see what the ceiling is for this channel, because obviously non-league football is a niche community, and it still is. But I feel like it is growing online over the last few years. And that's really helped my channel grow, I think, as well.
That's brilliant. And from everyone at WDSportz, including myself, like I said before, you are almost like the KSI of non-league. It is great to see you grow and prosper into something bigger than what we could imagine. And we wish you all the best. But we just want to say as well, thank you for doing this interview today. It was really, really good hearing from you, Luke.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers, man. Thank you.